I'm a food guy.
But you know what, dude?
I like
film,
cooking.
you know?
Dude, the
Yeah.
food guy is like the most important person. You're feeding everyone. Are you kidding me? I want a food guy.
Food beverage professional. There you go.
So you guys have been here how long at Standing Rock?
It's been about 3 days now at Standing Rock, and you know, this place is incredibly peaceful and it's just got a great energy here. The minute you roll in, you recognize that, you know, all the things you're hearing on the news about, you know, people plotting violence or having pipe bombs here is just absolutely absurd. You know, this is just a really, really amazing group of spiritual people who are just fighting for their land and for their resources.
Right, we came in last night. It was very spiritual, very peaceful. We've met a lot of people that just have the most wonderful stories about everything that's going on. So you're a documentary filmmaker, are you? And you guys have hit a couple of spots, right? You hit Flint.
Yeah, so
My
we're in
hometown.
Flint, Michigan. Flint, Michigan was a very interesting place, and you know, it's very depressing what's going on there, and you know, to really get to the bottom of it and learn about, you know, just the lack of any kind of responsibility by the government is just unbelievable. And there's been so many solutions that could have been implemented, but it hasn't happened. The community's really suffering up there, but it was really inspiring to see everyone, you know, just getting each other's back and all the donations, water coming in, and you know, there's a lot of support for Flint, but I just hope that their elected officials can finally get their act together and the mayors will stop embezzling from the community.
Absolutely.
And, you know, they've had like 5 emergency managers already in Flint, and you know, you look at what happened in Ann Arbor, where they switch, you know, their water line back to the Detroit municipal system almost immediately, just because that's a more affluent area. That kind of says everything. And you know, you wonder why things aren't happening faster in Flint, and you know, at a certain point you got to just say, this must be like some kind of depopulation experiment or something.
It's insane, isn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy what's happening there.
So you guys are hitting a lot of different spots. Is this part of the documentary, hitting all the different spots that are in distress and trouble? And
well, this film originally started as a trip down the Missouri River that 3 friends of mine took, and one of them was native Chickasaw. He's a filmmaker, and the other 2 were research biologists, and they took water samples as they went down the river to test, you know, for phosphates, nitrates, heavy metals, and see how all of those things accumulated as you go down the river. And by the time they got to St. Louis, they recognized that the pollution was worse than their gravest hypothesis, and they would have needed to change their sampling method to account for that level of pollution. So that was the original crux of what we were doing, and it was just going to be a documentary about their trip in the Missouri River, but then learning, you know, more about the downstream consequences of what happens because of, you know, the big ag up here and the oil and gas and all the fracking in Williston. All that water eventually travels down the Mississippi and into the Gulf of Mexico. So we needed to go and, you know, further investigate the ramifications of what was going on, and so that led us to spending a lot of time in Louisiana and talking with people about the oil and gas infrastructure there, sea level rise, the destruction of the wetlands, you know, water divergence issues, the drought in California, refineries in Houston, fracking in Pennsylvania. And as you go across America, you recognize that every place has a water issue, and you know, it might be a lack of water, it might be a mismanagement of water, it might be that their water is completely polluted, but everywhere has a water issue that they're affected by. And you know, it just seems like for a country that touts itself as the greatest country in the world, for us to be living in these kind of conditions water-wise and to not respect our infrastructure is absolutely insane. You know, absolutely insane.
in the 70s, we had movies that talked about corporations taking over the world, like Rollerball. Now we're living that world. We're living in that world where corporations have taken over the world, where Nestle says that water is not a human right, that you have to pay for it, that they're going to put a price tag on humanity. So it's really something else. And you're so quiet, because I know what he's saying as a documentary filmmaker, because I'm a filmmaker. So from your eyes as a virgin, what is it like?
Well, I think there's only really 1 of 2 ways you can see the world right now.
Talk louder so everybody can hear you.
There's really only 1 of 2 ways you can see the world right now. There's this Western worldview and the indigenous worldview, and I think we really need to stop and take a look and see what are the differences between them. An indigenous worldview perspective, look at the Inuits in Alaska. They're gonna go and hunt down a whale. That sounds horrendous if they take a whale, but they're gonna bring that ashore, and that'll feed an entire village. They'll use every part of that whale. and the community is the one that brought that whale in, and they're going to live all throughout the winter off that one whale. That's one way to live. And then the Western worldview is where we like to commoditize everything. We look at the world and we're at odds with the world. We have to conquer this world. We have to carve up this resource and that resource. And so it is a polluted mindset, and it's polluted because we are supposed to just jump into this rat race of grabbing at cash. Even when you're born and you're stamped with a birth certificate and you get a social security number, you are a human resource. You are told to go and just get a job and contribute to the society. I didn't ask for all of these rules to be in place, but you have to participate to survive. But I'm thinking that we can look past that Western worldview now and see the indigenous way of doing things about, someone lending firewood. People just keep dropping off firewood that are chopping firewood for us. People that are just round the clock feeding people. This is just really the best of humanity coming together right now, because we are choosing to live the alternative, and we're choosing right now. We don't have to wait, and we don't need to ask permission from someone. We're just taking that and living the indigenous community mindset right now and omitting the Western worldview. So it really just comes down to, what do you want to do right now? Because we're all doing this.
It's fascinating. I do a show that airs out of London called Nothing Sacred, and so and it's from a comics perspective. I believe nothing's sacred. Like, you talk about anything, there's nothing that's off limits, off bounds. So it's interesting to be here where everything is sacred to people. So it's an interesting view. It's also interesting to hear, as an artist, I talk about art, comedy as an art form, but I also talk about different forms of art, and it's interesting to listen to the two of you talk, because we've got one from a very visual standpoint. You've given me a very visual standpoint on how you see things as an artist, and immediately you start talking about food to describe everything, and that was really interesting. So it's really interesting the different ways art really takes its form, because I always say art is whatever makes you your feet hit the floor and make you want to go and get going and do something. So it's interesting to see that, and I appreciate you guys talking to me on Nothing Sacred, and I appreciate you finally, it's good to see young people, and I say young people because I'm much older than you guys are, but it's good to see young people doing something with their lives instead of just chasing pussy and just fucking drinking and going to the bar on Saturday night, and actually doing something to change the world. And we've met a lot of young people like that, and I think people forget, that it's time to, we've come to this path in the world where it's time to either stand up and make your voice heard or sit down and shut up. Like Carlin said, we're circling the drain.
It's true.
We're circling the drain. Carlin said we're circling the drain, man, and he said I got a front row seat to humanity's destruction, and he goes, and I'm old and I'm laughing at it right now, but it's sad because we're really at that stage. So we have to figure something out, because we're circling the drain, and I don't want to see humanity hit the drain.
Well, you said you work with comedians. I work with a lot of comedians too, and I was really involved in the Los Angeles comedy scene for a long time, and I still work with those people quite a bit because I think the world needs laughter.
Yes.
You can't just go and work on social justice documentaries all the time because it's too heavy.
Right.
People need that counterpoint of laughter to be able to get through this. And I love George Carlin. He's one of my heroes. And Bill Hicks is one of my favorite comedians. And,
we're already friends now.
But I just want to say, I want to call out all the comedians out there, in the world, because I've worked with a lot of you. And frankly, you have this great soapbox to stand on, and you have 15 minutes in a club where people are listening to you to talk about something important. And if you can do something with social commentary like George Carlin and be funny but also be profound, that's being an artist. A lot of these comedians these days, all I hear them talk about is weed, homosexuality, and it's just the same nonsense echo chamber that these people, it's like these sets aren't even distinguishable anymore. So
thank you for saying that, by the way. I appreciate that. And you know why? Because I get arguments with comics all the time about this, and the same thing I say to them I'm saying right now. Not only do corporations own the world and they own our water source, but they also own the comedy clubs, and so they force comics to say what they want them to say. One person gets upset about something and all of a sudden that comic goes, well, I'm gonna get fired. Well, guess what? Get another fucking job somewhere or do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Go somewhere and do something to make a difference in the world, you know?
In terms of corporations, most of these comedians and young artists are trying to sell out to corporate America. They need validation before they can go and do a project, and they're all talk. And that, frankly, is bullshit. If you guys keep saying that to me, like we need corporate money to make a project, then I don't want to work with you anymore. Like, go take, your destiny in your own hands, go and produce your own content, and do something of value for the world. We've got enough people doing the same, lowest common denominator sketches, just trying to go viral. Stand up, come here, discuss what's going on. We're at a very decisive moment in human history. I could still be working at Warner Brothers and working on like Hollywood, big budget studio movies, but that ultimately, I'd be part of the problem if I kept doing that. I'd rather be part of the solution and, coming out here to support, people that I have affinity with. And, I wish more people would come out and support and wake up. Just wake up.
Glad to meet you guys. Tell everybody your names again.
I'm Paul Argier, A-R-G-I-E-R.
And Steve Gute.
And what's your independent company name for your documentaries?
So the company we have is called Collective Media, and you can see the last film that we made called Radicalized. It's all about the Occupy movement and what happened after the camp broke up. So basically it follows everything in Los Angeles from the time of the original occupation up until the creation of the Black Lives Matter movement. And so that's up on Amazon and iTunes and pretty much everywhere except for Netflix because they're a bunch of assholes. But
I'll find it and put it on
yeah,
the
but go
list.
check it out. Hopefully you like
You
it.
never know, they might come around.
Yeah. And,
Somebody was saying, we need to get drones in there because they won't let a lot of camera stuff go on. We need to fly drones in. But I don't know what's going to happen. I said, well, because they're going to buy the sky up and then they're going to ticket you and say it's a felony to send a drone in. And they said, how are we going to do it? I said, I think you need to dress up the drones like Amazon. Just put Amazon on everything, or Domino's, and just tell them you're delivering. Because that's the way it's going now. Exactly. Exactly. Well, thanks for talking to us, guys. This is Kirk, Nothing Sacred. Good to talk.
And I'm Janine Wallace with KZKORadio.com, and I went to independent for the same reason. I don't want to work for corporate, Clear Channel, and all them. They can blow me. Okay.